the warden hurled a rock at the wall, but it made an odd sound. He quickly tore down the poster, revealing a bottomless tunnel behind it. Someone had escaped. The warden immediately mobilized every guard, and they eventually found discarded prison clothes in a sewage ditch outside the prison walls, along with a bar of soap. And of course, the most crucial piece of evidence, a small rock hammer, worn down to almost nothing. The incident sent shockwaves across America and became known as the famous Shawshank escape. But this whole story begins with one peculiar man named Andy. On his first day in prison, he was dressed respectably, but his tall, thin frame made him look especially frail and vulnerable. The other inmates mocked him. It was their traditional welcome for fresh meat. Meanwhile, Red, an old-timer, was making bets with his buddies about which newbie would crack first. Drawing on decades of experience, Red put down 10 KFC meals that Andy would be the one to break. Soon, the warden emerged from the shadows to introduce himself. Right then, a nervous inmate let out a fart. Hadley, the hot-tempered guard, immediately flew into a rage about blasphemy and didn't hesitate to beat the guy with his baton.
I believe in two things: discipline and the Bible. Put your trust in the Lord. Your ass belongs to me. Welcome to Shawshank.
First nights were always rough for new fish, and the old-timers loved it. They'd bet on who'd lose at first. The inmates started jeering, taunting the newcomers. Sure enough, before long, a fat guy couldn't take it anymore and started screaming, "Mama, help me! Let me out!" Hadley rushed over when he heard the commotion, furious. He yanked the fat man out of his cell and gave him a brutal beating that lasted a good 10 minutes. In the end, the poor guy didn't even make it through the night, beaten to death. Red was surprised to find that Andy wasn't as fragile as he looked. What surprised him even more was when Andy approached him a month later, asking for a small rock hammer to carve stones and pass the time. As a prison veteran, Red warned Andy to stay out of trouble, especially since he'd noticed the Sisters gang had their eyes on him. Andy repeatedly assured him he wouldn't cause any problems. After negotiating terms, they made the deal. This encounter changed Red's initial impression of Andy. Red quickly got the hammer, and his earlier worries seemed unnecessary. With a tool that small, it would take 600 years to dig a tunnel. But Andy's next 2 years were rough. He'd show up injured every few days. Though Andy never said who was responsible, Red knew it was the Sisters. The more Andy fought back, the more excited they got. Then one day, the workshop roof needed repairs, and the warden called for volunteers to work outside for a week. Red greased the wheels by slipping each guard a pack of cigarettes and landed the job. This job would change Andy's fate in prison. It turned out Hadley was stressed about some financial trouble. Andy, being a banker, didn't hesitate to approach Hadley and offer to help. Hadley didn't let him finish. He just shoved Andy right to the edge of the roof. Andy quickly explained that he could help Hadley avoid taxes and save a bundle.
I suppose I could set it up for you. That would save you some money. You get the forms, I'll prepare them for you. Nearly free of charge. I'd only ask 3 beers apiece for each of my co-workers.
Everyone was stunned, but Andy's courage paid off fast. When they finished work that day, everyone sat on the roof drinking ice-cold beers, all thanks to Andy. This was Andy's first taste of freedom for the guys, showing remarkable courage and smarts that made Red see him in a new light. Not long after, Andy came to Red again, saying he needed a Rita Hayworth movie poster. Red barely hesitated before agreeing. As time went on, the Sisters grew bolder. Seeing Andy's continued defiance, they flew into a rage and gave him a vicious beating. Andy was badly hurt this time and spent 30 days in the infirmary. But the Sisters' leader had no idea that Andy wasn't someone to mess with anymore. Hadley privately gave the gang leader a beating so severe he ended up a vegetable, eventually wheeled out of the prison. When Andy recovered and saw the poster Red brought him, he flashed a meaningful smile. One day, the warden showed up at Andy's cell under the guise of an inspection. They flipped through his bedding and pillows, knocked over his bookshelf, and searched thoroughly. The warden saw Andy holding a Bible and assumed he was embracing God. Since he fancied himself God's messenger, this pleased him greatly. Truth was, he'd come because he needed something from Andy. He had no clue that this very Bible he didn't bother to open would eventually lead to his downfall. 3 days later, the warden summoned Andy and gave him an easier job, helping out in the library as an assistant to an old-timer who'd been there for years. When Andy saw the pathetic state of the place, he decided to ask the warden for funding, but got nowhere. Andy didn't give up. Instead, he started writing letters to the state legislature, one every week. Though they seemed to disappear into thin air, he kept at it. Andy knew the warden didn't switch his job just to have him run a library. Sure enough, before long, a guard came to Andy for help with his taxes. Soon, Andy became the prison's financial advisor, with more and more guards seeking his help. Eventually, the prison even set aside 30 days a year for Andy to handle various financial problems. Years flew by, and the old librarian finally got paroled. After 50 years inside, he was completely out of touch with the world, and the rapid changes outside left him confused and scared. Despite working hard, he kept getting criticized, which made him feel helpless and lost. Prison habits made it impossible to sleep, and nightmares constantly woke him up. Finally, the old man couldn't take the pain anymore and took his own life. Red and Andy were devastated, both heartbroken by the outcome. Red, deeply moved, shared his feelings with everyone.
First you hate them, then you get used to them. Enough time passes, you get so you depend on them. That's institutionalized.
Andy kept writing his weekly letters, until one day, 6 years later, his persistence finally paid off. The state not only sent dozens of boxes of old books, but also included $200 in funding.
Good for you, Ed.
It only took 6 years. From now on, I'll write 2 letters a week instead of 1.
As Andy browsed through the old records, he struck gold. He picked one, turned and put it on the record player. Beautiful melodies began filling the room, and Andy had a sudden inspiration. He turned and locked the office door, flipped on the PA system, and broadcast the music throughout the entire prison. Every inmate stopped in their tracks, quietly listening to the moving music as if receiving a baptism. The music didn't just reach their ears, it transcended the thick walls, soaring like a bird carrying hope to the outside. In that moment, everyone forgot about the iron bars, experiencing true freedom for the first time in ages. This was Andy's second gift of freedom to his fellow inmates. The warden stormed in, furious, threatening Andy to turn off the music immediately. But Andy paused for a moment, then deliberately cranked up the volume, completely enraging the warden, who burst through the door with his men.